Flying a Chinese airline can be a bit of a gamble, because despite there technically being so much competition, they're all completely different. So come with us as we dive right in flying China Eastern's business class suite on the Airbus A350, and I think what we'll find will surprise you in more ways than one.
So fed, watered and happy. It's a beautiful day here in Shanghai. I'm just heading to the metro station. Unfortunately the complimentary bus just wasn't at the right time, and I really do like trains, so there we go.
My hotel for the night was pretty convenient. It was $60 and it's only one stop away from Shanghai Pudong International Airport, costing about 4 yen for one single, which is really cheap and it even includes breakfast.
Now if you decide to watch this part of the video and you haven't skipped over it, then you've made a good choice if you're flying China Eastern, because it goes from Terminal 1. Useful info.
If you're not sure, there's a handy list just by the lifts, which take you up to departures, with all the airlines that operate from this terminal, but better yet, just do a Google search before you even arrive. If you're travelling in economy, then the check-in area is pretty normal. Lots of barriers and the usual desks. But if you're flying in a premium cabin, there's a special dedicated section that also has barriers, but the stands are gold and the barriers are a posh velvety red. It's also a lot quieter and there's a sense of calm. And with check-in taking no more than 3 minutes, I'm off to immigration, which at first appears to be pretty long. Once you get through passport control, there's a further red rope section just for business or first class passengers, which at most I've seen 5 people queuing. Unlike Terminal 2, Terminal 1 is a little bit different. There's a main terminal and then a satellite, so if you see that your boarding gate is G101 up to G552, then you'll need to take a shuttle train followed by an extremely long set of escalators, and you should allow at least 15 minutes for the transfer. Have to admit, after visiting the Air China lounge, which felt a little bit like Grandma designed it, my expectations were low, but actually the China Eastern lounge is a lot nicer. I'd personally rather be in the sublime calm that is the Cathay Pacific lounge, but I don't think China Eastern would allow that, and this one will do. The one end of the lounge felt pretty darkly lit, and there was a huge mazed area of leather chairs that almost felt like a theatre, but with the curtains drawn I made my way to the left, which takes you to some pretty well thought out areas for working, eating or just resting before the long voyage. The food looked alright, but it didn't really shout to me, to be consumed at least, so I decided to make do with a pair of tuna sandwiches and a pork bao bun that just felt like a small tea party. And if this is anything to go by, then I probably need to keep those expectations pretty low for the food on board.
Well, I enjoyed this pork bun. Let's have a look at today's route map.
Mike Uniform 709 departs Shanghai at 12:30 midday, and I'm hoping for some stunning views on the corner of China on this 14-hour and 40-minute journey over to Madrid Barajas Terminal 1, arriving at 20:35. That's perfect if I can then fall asleep before my flight home tomorrow, or an absolute nightmare if I can't. There is an elephant in the room, and recently it's become pretty obvious that European carriers are finding it hard to compete with Chinese airlines. This is because of sanctions over Russia, which is adding extra mileage and cost. So it's not a surprise that I was able to pick up today's flight for a pretty reasonable price. What's also interesting is that Chinese carriers cannot compete on the same routes, and this is because of a 2009 policy called One Route, One Airline. Pretty simple. Although I did find both China Eastern and Air China departing on the same route from Frankfurt to Shanghai on one random search, and hence why they don't really need to compete against each other. And this is why it could be considered flying a Chinese carrier is a bit of a gamble, because it might seem a little cost-cutting cheap, and so while the seat looks pretty good on China Eastern's A350, I'm not really sure what to expect with the service and the in-flight entertainment. And with my expectations firmly locked down in a tiny little box, here's today's flight, which is operated by an Airbus A350-900, and it's nearly on its 4th birthday. I'm pretty eager to get on board into what looks like a very private seat for the next incredible 14 hours. I'm not exactly sure where the plane was brought in from, but it was pretty majestic watching it come in out the window.
So we're boarding about 22 minutes late, not too bad.
The A350 gives a lot of flexibility when it comes to seating options, with rivals like Lufthansa opting to first class and business class suites at the very front, with a more conventional seat just behind this. While Virgin Atlantic have 2 premium seats in the centre for an additional cost with larger screens, called the Retreat Suite. China Eastern's A350 have the Business Plus seat, which are in row 1, and although I booked this through a third party at a much lower rate, this meant I couldn't access these seats as an option. The advantage of these seats are the extra privacy and a much more generous footwell, and a whopping 32-inch HD display. Otherwise these feature the same Thomson Vantage Aero seats. Behind row 1 is a further 9 rows of business class seats, with the quietest cabin being the mini suites in rows 15 and 16.
So welcome on board. These are the Thomson Advantage XL seats with 23 inches of width. Legroom is slightly pinched when it's in the flat mode, but that's pretty standard for this type of.
I know it, you know it, the cabin does come across very beige, which can give it a grandma's house kind of feel, if it wasn't for the very modern seats. Air China, who we flew a few months later, is totally the opposite, and you'll see from my review this is my preferred choice for so many reasons over China Eastern. And throughout the cabin you'll notice that the seats are staggered left and right, so the best seats are the even numbers which are close to the windows, followed by the odds and then the middle rows. The footwell does indeed look extremely pinched, and that's because of the seat in front, but shoes off I did find it pretty reasonable given the space at the shoulder end. And with the sliding door open, the seat is very private, just noting that the bearings for the door are very loud, so when someone opens the door 5 rows away you're going to know about it. To my left is a large side table which also houses the seat controls, which were slightly faulty on the way back, and the in-flight entertainment controller. And just behind this is a small open storage cupboard, which also houses a very cheap pair of headphones, universal plug socket, USB-A port and the headphone jack. There's also a small and pleasant LED lamp to create a bit of atmosphere, and the seat has a 3-point concept seat belt, which I find annoying wearing t-shirts, but it's good for safety, so yeah. And there's a coat hook just by the door, which I probably would imagine no one ever uses. Just below the side table is the tray table and further buttons, with the light one being particularly useful when the main one just didn't work. The best part about the seat is the window shade blinds, which are pretty cool and give the cabin a sort of luxury feel. They're also really fun to play with when the button works, which they often didn't. And this is sort of a recurring theme with China Eastern, it's the inconsistency. I'm genuinely not sure if I would pick China East again, so I felt like now was the time to explore the economy cabin, just to see what it's like. There is more beigey brown, which is safe, but they really missed an opportunity here to be more adventurous. Otherwise it's laid out in a 3-3-3 layout, with 18 inches of width, which is good, 31 inches of pitch, and a below average 3 inches of recline. The in-flight entertainment is at least 11.7 inches and Full HD, which is above average, featuring both a universal plug socket and USB-A. I was going to tell you at this point about the premium economy cabin, but then a member of cabin crew understandably gave me a casual telling off, asking where I was sitting. I was extremely polite, but I think she just had a bit of a long day, which I totally get with the time zones, so I made my way back to the front of the plane. Maybe she was just worried I might get stuck, with passengers now boarding. We'll just go with that. I was then handed a cold but refreshing towel, with a hot one not being an option. There was already a bottle of complimentary water in the storage unit, and a plush and firm pillow with the China Eastern branding. What did surprise me, and this is next level, was the beautifully wrapped pair of slippers. And even the Minity kit, which wasn't available on the flight to Shanghai, comes wrapped for sanitary purposes, and again it's very pretty and would make a lovely gift. The meals kit has all the typical items: toothbrush, toothpaste, a comb, eye mask, but oddly no beauty products, not even a body lotion.
I can already tell these aren't very well made, and to be honest, I might use my own. I actually bought an adapter in Hong Kong, so I'll be using my own £20 set for the duration of the flight.
They were flimsy, they don't sit on the ear very well, and I strongly suggest you bring your own, but this was the least of my worries. With 14 hours and 40 minutes ahead, I was hoping to sleep for a good portion of the flight. And unfortunately, unlike their sister Air China, their in-flight entertainment is a letdown. There was 1 or 2 series in English, which I'd not heard of before, but movies is usually the strong point for any airline. There was only 16 movies in English, and I can usually find something to watch, but I really struggled after finding what I would consider the only good movie, and then watching some pretty low budget romance. The meal service starts off with another cold towel, and then the menu, which takes a little deciphering because it depends on the month of year as to which meal service is available. With this being October, it's the yellow section. Despite the newer Airbus A350s and the very plush seat, I can see a running theme here. It only takes a quick search of trusted website Seeking Alpha, which is a useful tool for those making decisions in stocks and shares, and you can see why China Eastern is cost cutting. In 2024, they saw a 30% growth in revenue, but they continue to make a loss. Before taking my order, I've been handed a pack of mixed fruit nuts. That would probably feel more at home in economy, and then ordered a glass of the BP Rothschild Bordeaux white wine, and a Mu hot tea. Things improved with the meal service, and I can highly recommend the pumpkin soup, which was delicious and a reasonable sized portion. This was followed by a tasting plate of potato salad, salmon, lettuce and melon. And there was even a choice of bread to go with, opting for several portions of garlic bread. Moving on to the main course, I chose the salmon with pak choy and white rice, which was cooked perfectly, followed by the red velvet cake dessert. I did really enjoy this, but it's maybe not adventurous enough for business class. It probably sounds like I'm giving China Eastern a good bashing. When their direct competitor does it so well, you have to wonder though what went wrong. And there is a silver lining here, and that's the price I paid, which I don't normally talk about, but I'll reveal this later in the video. Three hours into the journey and it was time to go. The bathroom is one of the nicest I've seen if you ignore Qatar's A380 upstairs. It was very clean, well maintained, with a very small hand wash and body lotion container. I dragged out the meal service for as long as I could, but 10 hours is a long time when you have very little content to watch. even if my phone is filled with Netflix downloads, so I'll see you in a few hours. 4 hours into the flight, we had crossed from Mongolia into Russian airspace, and I went for a little stroll, finding a nice selection of drinks and snacks in the galley. Given today's flight left Shanghai at 12:30 midday, it felt a little odd to submerge the cabin into darkness so early on. I had a quick peek outside and it was still beautifully daylight. I would love to tell you that I went back to sleep, but despite my best efforts, I was in and out of a daydream for the next few hours. I did feel they could have kept the lights low for those who wished to continue sleeping, but for the rest of us I decided to have an orange juice which looked pretty good. And a plate of fruit. The starter was a massive different salad with a few prawns here and there. And moving on to the main course, which was very mouth-wateringly tasty: white rice, braised pork with potato in soy sauce and vegetables, with steamed rice. Although I couldn't actually spot any potato, and I didn't dare try and cram in a dessert, I simply didn't have the room. After the meal service, the guilt set in, and I closed the window shades hoping I might go back to sleep. But this just wasn't meant to be, so skip forwards, and with not much else to talk about, it's time for dinner. I mean, I say dinner, but is this lunch, breakfast? I don't know anymore. I think that's probably the third refreshing towel. And this also comes with my choice of a very milky tea, just the way I like it, and a chicken cucumber sandwich, which looks a little lost in the plate, but it was extremely delicious. And with little more to say, it was time to prepare for the landing, and I am so ready to be on the ground. 14 hours in the sky, especially with a lack of distractions, regardless of which seat you're sitting in, can be a challenge.
I'm just here at Terminal 2 waiting for my KLM flight. I'm just reflecting on yesterday's flight. I'll start with the food. The first meal was really good, second meal slightly less food 4 hours later, and the last meal was basically just a sandwich, which I'm a bit baffled by because that should be the main course. In terms of the crew, they were really professional. Perhaps it's a cultural difference, but they didn't really have any banter, which sort of made it a bit more personal. In terms of the seat, it is really good. Love the privacy, the comfort, and it's really good in terms of the width for the shoulders, which is a big positive. Can't really argue with the price. It was less than £700 one way, which is exceptional for what is like a 13-hour flight.
Would I fly them again? Well, at this price, yes. But that was until I flew Air China, and the experience just blew this one completely out of the water.
Anyway, I have to catch my next flight. Hope you enjoyed the video, and hasta luego.